Hello and welcome to another how to paint video. In this video I'm going to show you how to paint this, which is the Small Farmhouse from Joan of Arc in 15mm. If you're not yet a subscriber, please do click that subscribe button and don't forget to ding the bell from YouTube. That is how YouTube knows whether you want to be informed whether one of my videos goes live or just want to kind of see it by accident. So yeah, if you are interested, don't forget to do that. I will now go back to the beginning of this little tutorial. I'm not a great painter. I'm not a great printer either. Not a great painter. I wouldn't claim to be. But what I'm trying to do here is show you how a normal painter is able to paint quite quickly. And I don't own anything. I only own one contrast paint. So I'm showing you how to do this without contrast paints because we don't all have them. We can't all afford them. And yet that doesn't mean that you can't get really good results using the paints that you potentially already have sat on your shelf, and it doesn't have to take hours and hours and hours to get a really nice result. So I hope that you enjoy this. If you find it useful, if you have any comments to make, please drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from them, and I will see you again once the tutorial is done. Let's get painting this small house then, and I hope that I keep it in shot. I will do my best to. So, and I will also talk you through and put up the colours that I'm using. So first of all, we're going to use old wood over all of the wood. So I'm just going to paint that in. I'm using an old brush here. I'm a bit cheap and so I'm struggling away on this one before I start a new one. I do have brush soap and I have cared for this brush, but it's done a lot of painting. Old wood is great. It dries a little grey and it accepts a wash very nicely. So I will get this painted. I'll pop some music on for you and I'll be back to talk again for the next colour in a minute. There we are, that's the first coat of the old wood gone on. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to actually just go straight for a wash. And I'm going to go straight for a classic wash, which is Citadel shade Nuln oil. Give it a good shake. This one's running out. Fortunately, I have another pot. And what I'll do is I'll grab my little shade thing here, which helps me make sure that things don't get knocked over. And I'm now going to apply that all over all of the stone. And it's going to be done in quite a heavy wash. I will probably be colouring over the top, but this is to pick out all of that lovely detail. So, once more, I will get this done and I will talk again when I come to the next stage. There we are, we have the Nuln wash over all of the brickwork. I've actually missed a bit there, just this side of the chimney, so I'll quickly get that done. It's a very quick technique and it looks very nice, and what I will do is I will add some highlighting and stuff to it later, but it's pretty close I think to how I want it to be long term. Just a dirty grey. They're not exactly rich, these peasants. And of course, we also need to paint inside the, need to put a wash on top of the chimney and also in the inside. There we are. So now that's done. Okay, right, I'm going to quickly stretch my legs and stretch my hands and change the battery on the camera, and I'll be back shortly with the next step. Okay, that's better. Hands work again. Right, I'm going to paint the roof now. This is very nearly done. This is a really quick technique that I'm using here. I'm not really trying to be too fancy on this one. I may get more advanced on other ones, but this is just the first attempt. And I'm going to do this with two colours. So first of all, I'm going to put a blue wash, which is also from Vallejo. I'm going to put that all over the all over the roof and let that dry. And once that's dried, I will come back in with a very light wash of pale blue-grey pale, because I want it to look a bit slate-like. So we'll give the wash a good shake. I'll pop it onto my painting palette, which is just out of shot over here, and we'll paint that over, and then when it's dry, then I'll come back with a second shot to do the pale blue grey. So we're just going to literally wash that over very, very quickly. Right, I'll let that dry and I'll be back in a very short while. While that blue wash is drying, I'm actually going to work on the metal work, which is literally steel work, and I have natural steel here from Vallejo model cover, natural steel, which I like a lot. It's quite hard to use. It needs a very good shake, which I'll do now. There we are. It's quite hard to use, or at least I used to find it quite hard to use, but since I've been using it more and more and more, I've really got used to it. You need to, as I say, give it a very good shake, and it does need to be applied to a wet palette or watered down slightly, because if you don't do that, then it's just kind of smears. It doesn't really look metallic or give any kind of coverage at all. So let me see if, having just said I know how to use it, whether it's actually going to work for this. So hopefully this will go on quite nicely just on the metal work. Just a little bit of a shine to it. It's basically a metallic grey. Yeah, that's going on nicely. Right, so I'm going to do all of the metal work, and this time you can have some music. that's the metalwork painted on. So I will clean my brushes and I'll be back with the next step very shortly. The wash on the roof is still wet, so what I'm now going to do is the windows, and this is something, I've got 3 windows to do on this building. This is something which Preston, who runs the Discord for Joan of Arc, asked me to do specifically, and I'm quite interested. I've worked it out. Quite excited to do this for this build, and I'll be doing this technique for all of my houses. So the idea is that this is a warm and welcoming home. So what I have here is a lemon yellow. Now it's any bright yellow that you have. Don't worry too much about the actual specific colour, and you don't need very much of it at all. And this is a very simple technique that only takes 2. Now I've done it before with moon yellow as well, which I might show on maybe on the end window. I'll do moon yellow. So what you do, the simplest thing that you do is you're just going to paint inside the windows with your yellow. I haven't yet decided on the colour that I'm going to do the window bars. I might just paint that a nice colour. They're not rich, but they're house proud, clearly. But what you're doing is you're painting in each of the window squares. So there's not that many to do, so I won't subject you to any more music. You can just see just how quickly this is, how quick this is to do. Okay, I'll do moon yellow on a different building. I'm just going to do what I've got on the palette. There we are. So with that painted, I will now let that to dry, and I'll be back with the next step for painting windows just as soon as I can, which won't be very long because it does dry very fast. It has that roof is still wet, we're still going to have to wait there. Right, so that might be time now for me to paint the little kind of cross beams across on the windows. But I will clean my brush again and be back in a very short while. I decided to let that dry before because I'm really not sure what colour to do those. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to finish off the windows because they're now all dry. And wouldn't you know, the old favourite Agrax Earthshade comes out. So I'm going to pop that into my little pot holder, and what you do is you simply drop it in so it goes to the edges. Not quite as heavy as that, but less than you want than that. So I'll pick that up and move it around. But what it does is it makes it look like firelight coming through a bit of a dirty pane of glass, but it also makes it quite welcoming. So I'll put a dip of each in each pane and then spread it to the edges. And if you find you've got too much on your brush, just dab it off on the piece of paper, which you should always have, and you can go back in and move it around because it dries fast, but not so fast that you can't move it. So I've actually taken a little bit too much off there, so I'll get a little bit more back. There we are. There we are. And then last but not least, this end window. And that is how easy it is to paint windows which are glowing. You don't need to do anything much more than that, especially on small scale models like this. A nice bright yellow, and then an Agrax or an umber wash. If you don't have Games Workshop, just a generic umber wash will also work. So there we are, and they've got lovely glowing windows there. So we're nearly done on this, as it happens. Just need to wait for this to dry, which I think it is. Right, okay, that's dry. So I'll clean my brush and I'll come back and we'll do the highlight layer for the roof, which is going to be using blue grey pale blue-grey pale. I'll be back in 1 second. Okay, so let's get stuck into this. So my idea here, my aim here, is to make it look a little bit more like a like it's a slaty roof, rather than it being too much of a high fantasy blue roof, because you don't really see very many actually blue roofs. So what I'm doing here is, it's not a wash, this blue-grey, grey-blue, whatever. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually going to be apologies. What I'm doing here is I'm actually going to be watering it down quite a lot, and then applying it over the whole area as a wash. With lots and lots of water, and then just apply it over as a wash. Now what I might do is use my wash brush. That'll probably make it easier. And that will just tone that blue down. Leave it there, but it will tone the blue down, and it'll make it look a little more realistic, a little bit less high fancy. So I'll get that done. I'll track some music on, and then I'll be back when it's completed. There we are. It's a really quick technique, but I think that looks great. It's still got that blue tinge to it, but it's definitely now got the grey as well. I might come back later and do another coat of that, another wash of that very pale grey, but I'll wait to see what it looks like when it's dried. So, finally need to decide what to do about these windows. I've decided that I want to have a little bit of contrast on this house. I want something that's not just washes and what have you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for a dark red. I'm probably going to go for black red, which is a particular favourite of mine at the moment, if I didn't drop it. And I'm going to use that to do the window frames. That's the word I've been looking for throughout the whole of this video. So I'll pop a bit on my wet palette, and I will now paint this in just very, very lightly down the centre, then across, and then down the outside. So I'll pop some music on while I'm doing this. Last but not least on this, I'm going to do something which I quite like doing. Again, they're house proud, but they're not rich. So I'm going to put a light wash of this red just over the door. So they've painted the door, and they've painted their window frames, but they haven't really been able to afford to paint everything else. And this will just again add a little bit more character and tell a little bit more of a story about this particular house and these particular house owners. And I love that immersion where you have a story. And I like this as well because it's over the top of the wood colour, so the wood grain is still coming through, the wood's still coming through, but it does just look like they've put a little bit of paint on it, and that's just to make it a little bit more special. So the final step now is going to be to finish off the wood. Now I don't need to have my wet palette open anymore, so I'll cover that over so it doesn't dry out. And I will reach for the magic again of the Agrax Earthshade. Give it another shake. And I won't use the wide brush this time. And what we're going to do is we're going to drop the Agrax over the wood. And that will bring out that lovely texture that these models have without overwhelming the wood colour that I've put on. So I will put some music on and get that done, and then we're finished. How about that? really is the magic when you're putting when you put that wash on. Absolutely superb. So I'm going to let that dry now, and I will call that done. There are some extra processes that I could go through, which I might do, but I'll do it in a different video. That would be adding some like ivy or moss to the roof or to the walls, and vegetation and what have you. But that's kind of for a different type of video, I think. And I'm very pleased with how that's looking now. So I hope you've enjoyed that. And if you have, please comment below. And don't forget to like and also to subscribe. And if you do subscribe, don't forget to ding the bell, because that way you'll be told by YouTube whenever one of my videos goes live. If you do like this style of video, please let me know as well. Thank you for watching.